1 minute for the news.
We have arrived at... Wait, hang on a minute. There we go, that's a better layout. Massive thanks to Ben Svaldinger for suggesting me a new video editing software for me to use, which is similar to Premiere Pro. Anyways, we have arrived at the popular Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas for the running of the United States Grand Prix, the first of 2 North American races this season. Coming into this week, 3 teams have been making the headlines this week. The first team news of the day comes from Renault, as they have announced that 2-time pole sitter and 2019 BTCC champion Jesus Perinen will remain with the team for 2022. Jesus has had an amazing rookie season, with him still yet to achieve his first ever top class win. He currently lies 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, 23 points behind George Roque, and his team Renault lie 3rd in the Constructors, 21 points behind Mercedes. As mentioned, Jesus has had a brilliant rookie season, with him racking up 9 podiums and 2 pole positions. However, he is yet to achieve a win, which he is hoping to do in these remaining 5 races. He'll be looking to continue his impressive season into 2022 and hopes Renault will improve on all fronts to be consistent title contenders in 2022. The only question remaining at Renault is who will be his teammate, with Evan Byrne leaving the team at the end of the season to return to Red Bull. As we've known for a while, there are 2 drivers who are hot contenders for that second Renault seat. They are Alfa Romeo's Romain Quark and Aston Martin's Julius Anderson. Given the news that Jesus will be retained by the team, it looks like Roman and Julius will be fighting it out to see who will partner alongside Jesus for 2022. It'll be fascinating to see who comes out on top. The second team news of today comes from Red Bull, as after so much speculation, they have announced that 5-time race winner George Roque will remain with the team for 2022. George has had a mixed return to Red Bull with some good and bad moments throughout the season. He currently lies 4th in the Drivers' Championship, 23 points behind Jesus Perinen, and his team Red Bull currently lead the Constructors' Championship by 67 points ahead of Mercedes. For a while it was unknown whether George will remain at Red Bull or not, as a result of a shaky season the Brit has had. However, as a result of both Rahul Patel and Jesus Perinen being retained by their current teams, it gave George a lifeline to be retained by the team for another season. George will be looking to finish the season strongly and will be looking to have a better 2022 season, with him hoping to win his first world title. He'll partner alongside Evan Byrne, with Red Bull returning to the lineup they had at the last 4 races of 2006 as a result of Franco Gamba announcing back at the Portuguese Grand Prix that he'll be retiring from the top class at the end of the season, with him hoping to leave the top class as champion before he hopefully heads off to another series. The final team news of the day comes from AlphaTauri, as they have announced that 2009 world champion Miklos Gau will remain with the team for next season. Miklos has had a very tricky season as a result of this season's AlphaTauri going backwards compared to last season. He currently lies 17th in the Drivers' Championship, tied with Welshman Jamie Griffiths, and his team AlphaTauri lie 9th in the Constructors, 3 points behind Alfa Romeo and 4 points ahead of Williams. Miklos joined AlphaTauri in 2021 expecting a challenge. However, I think it is fair to say he didn't expect this sort of challenge, with AlphaTauri having one of the slowest cars on the grid, with the Honda engine papering over the cracks when it comes to power circuit. He has had a high this season, which came at Monaco, where he got the team's second ever podium, being known as AlphaTauri. Miklos will be hoping the team has a better season in 2022 and hopes AlphaTauri can move from the back of the grid to be in regular point scoring challenges again next season. And that is it for this week's edition of the GP4 OC News. The next team news will break at the Mexican Grand Prix next week. Who will be announced during to practice next week at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City. Hello everybody and welcome to round 17 of the 2021 GP4 Offline Championship. We are here at the popular Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas for the United States Grand Prix. I'm your commentator for today, JW97, and I'm joined today by the man who commented alongside me for the Malaysian Grand Prix. It's Robert Ionescu.
Hello. I hope we can have an entertaining practice and qualifying session today here at COTA. How are you doing, Joe?
Doing well indeed, and hopefully you like the news video, because seriously, I do seriously have to thank Banks Valdinger for being such a lifesaver when it came to that, for suggesting me a different software to use which is similar to Premiere Pro, as it looks like the graphics for the Haas are a bit mixed up, so bear with. But as I was saying, as Yuri sorts out the issues of the Haas, because there is a reason why it's like that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, seriously, massive thank you to Bence Valdinger if he's watching, because literally, obviously I was using iMovie for a little bit, but then, ironically, he DM'd me after the catch-up episode premiered on Thursday, and suggested me this software, which I took a look at the following day, and I have to say I'm really happy with it. It's a similar sort of layout to Premiere Pro. However, for anybody wondering if I would bring back highlights, no, and the reason for that is because there's a bit of a drawback with the video editing software. Whilst it's more advanced than iMovie, I can't disprove of that, it does have a bit of a glitch which makes it hard to do any sort of highlights, for example. Not the sort of highlights that you see on the F1 channel where it just takes the TV commentary, but like sort of the highlights that we've had in the past with George on commentary. And the reason for that is because with audio, it does have a bit of a glitch where the sound kind of crackles a bit and can go out of sync and go, basically, the best way Bence described it, goes up, down, basically, the volume, and it would make it hard to sync the commentary up if that was the case. So if anybody's wondering with this advanced software whether I'll bring back highlights, unfortunately not, due to that glitch. So sorry about that, but at least we've been able to get a familiar layout again for the news video. So that's that.
Yeah, that's a relief. And speaking of the news we've heard, I don't think there was anything unexpected today. However, I guess my one biggest surprise. Let's talk about each of them individually. First up, like it was in the video, Jesus Pernion. He's being retained by Renault. There is absolutely no surprise. The only thing I'm surprised is that it took so long to announce it. I think it should have been announced on day one, in my honest opinion, but it doesn't matter. He's having a great season, and he's confirmed to stay at Renault for another year, Joe.
And in turn, it led to the news that George Roque would indeed be retained by Red Bull for another season. Of course, there was a bit of a debate as to whether George would actually get retained by Red Bull, because, of course, Perinen and Patel could have ended up booting him out if they had got booted out of their respective teams, because, of course, Renault have got Roman Quagg and Julius Anderson competing for those seats, and at Lamborghini, Julius Anderson could have got the Lamborghini seat over Patel if if he'd missed out on his Renault choice. But in the end, it didn't happen for him, and it's Renault or nothing now for Julius. Hence why Rahul got retained at Lamborghini. Jesus got retained at Renault, so he's got to hope that he beats Roman to that seat if he wants to be at Renault next season. And it led to George being retained at Red Bull as a result. So yeah, it does mean now that if I count, 5 teams have now got their lineup sorted out for 2022, and in total, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 seats left to decide in these remaining 4 races. 2 seats at Alfa Romeo, 2 seats at Aston Martin, 2 seats at Haas, 1 seat at McLaren, 1 seat at Renault, and 1 seat at Williams. So, of course, normally during the US Grand Prix, I ask people what their predictions are for the remaining seats. But because this is only the 5th and last race, I'm going to save it till Mexico on that occasion to ask the public. So
yeah, I think that's fair enough, actually. We've got surprisingly few seats left unannounced, so I think we can take our time announcing each and every one of them. Of course, I'm not part of the sign-up process, so I don't know who gets what and when it gets announced, but that is my personal opinion.
Yeah, indeed. So, just waiting about to see get the livery sorted out. For anybody wondering why it's taken a while, it's because we had a bit of an issue with the Haas livery. Now, the reason for that is because they've actually got a special livery. Well, I say special livery, a bit of a tweak to their livery, really, given that it is their home race and also Amelia Wilson's home race as well. So bear with me. Apparently, there's also another team that's got a special livery as well, from what I understand from you, but I've got no idea who that is. Sorry, say that again. Okay, fair enough. Well, whatever it is, Yuri doesn't really count it as special livery. It's just special tweaks, as they were. But yeah. So just wait about, guys. So yeah, they were obviously the news is that came out, and obviously, judging from the reaction from George Roke in the stream chat, he's obviously relieved to be retained for next season. So
I don't think it was ever in doubt, really. Once you look at the signups, you figure out the only people who could challenge Rogue will probably get retained by their teams. So it was only a matter of if, not it was only a matter of when, not if Rogue would get announced to be retained. And yeah, he's having a difficult season, but he's done well enough to remain, of course. And yeah, he'll be hoping he can have it a little bit better next time.
And so yeah, and Bent has just appreciated the comment I just said there, just seen in the stream chat. So just bear with, guys. We're just trying to get the livery sorted out for the Haas, and then we will get this practice session underway. I should point out there are no test drivers in the car for this week, but there was meant to be test drivers in the car at the last race in Malaysia, but due to some issues, they haven't arrived. So those two drivers...
Should we tell everyone what those issues were? Or
nah?
No.
Nah.
Okay, we'll keep it a little secret then.
As I was saying, Hento Sinanome and Ruslan Proxy were meant to be having their test rolls at Malaysia last week, but that didn't happen. And because they're over at Fuji this week for their Japanese Grand Prix, it means that their test roll will get moved to next week at Mexico, along with Dennis Graff's book session. Although it wouldn't really feel like a book session for Dennis Graff, given that how many times he's been in the Ferrari throughout the season, kind of like what he did when he was at Williams. So yeah, it's been a bit of that, really, with Dennis Graff. So
he kind of likes doing those practice sessions, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, indeed. And obviously getting some mileage in whilst at the same time currently struggling in Formula 2 at the moment, which is a bit of a shame to see. But at least it gets him away from that, I suppose, him doing those practice sessions for Ferrari. But anyway, we're just waiting for that livery to get sorted out. And then hopefully we will get underway. So I think Yuri's just trying to get it because I think what it is, I think what it is because I think it just flipped really on one side, and Yuri's just struggling to get it turned around really. So yeah, that's that really, and just waiting to get this session underway. So the 3 drivers who I mentioned are still here to get test rolls for the remainder of this. So of course, Hento Sinanome, Ruslan Proxy, who can, well, I say Dennis Graff, but it's his book session that he's still yet to do, as he's already done a few practice sessions this season, and and they're the only ones. So obviously we've got 5 races left: the US Grand Prix, the Mexican Grand Prix, and it is being called the Mexican Grand Prix again, the Bahrain Grand Prix, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and the Brazilian Grand Prix, which will play host to the final race of the season. Of course, we might as well talk about the last race in Malaysia whilst we are waiting, Rob. It was a pretty dominant display from Chris Chatfield. 2 wins in a row from him, and definitely a man on form.
Absolutely. The big question now is, can he keep that streak going? Can he make it 3 in a row? And Coda, it's a downforce track. Ferrari are pretty good when it comes to downforce, so we'll have to wait and see there.
Indeed so, and it should be interesting. But finally, I think we've got it going again because Yuri has just shared us the stream, and I think the livery has now been fixed as we're now back in the garage now. Then, just gonna quickly double check, and yep, everything is now sorted. And they do have a minor change, but I think we'll see it more on display when they come back out onto the racetrack. So now we're just going to wait for the cars who's going to be the first to go out onto the racetrack, as all 22 cars are now in the garage. And,
here we go.
So just waiting, just looking on the top right of my screens to see if there's any movement going on. And I think there is. There's somebody who's just moving right now, as you can see on the minimap, and it is a McLaren that's going out. It is Joseph Willows, the man who, of course, finished in second place last time out at the Malaysian Grand Prix. But I think the big talking point about his race was that awful strategy that McLaren put him on.
Yeah, I think it was in an attempt to try to get the fastest lap, but thankfully he managed to hold on to second, which is where he would have finished even without that strategy.
Yeah, indeed, and of course a very strong weekend for Willows. Of course, still yet to be confirmed by McLaren for 2022. I think a lot of people are a bit surprised he wasn't announced, because a lot of people put it down as a prediction that Willows would get retained by McLaren. But so far, still yet to be confirmed. But you'd probably imagine, and I'm trying not to be biased here, because of course, for obvious reasons. But I think a lot of people have come to the conclusion that I think Willows is more than likely going to be retained. Rob.
I think it's only a matter of time. He's one of the best drivers in OC history, and he's won a race this season in that McLaren, which isn't exactly the greatest car you've ever seen. And he just got that podium. Like I said just a few seconds ago, only a matter of time.
And of course, McLaren would need that experience, of course, given that they're obviously going through a transitional period in 2022 with switching to BMW power. So it will be interesting to see where that one ends up going, as well as will be starting his lap very, very soon. But the Haas is out on track, so I think we're going to see in just a moment what that Haas may or may not look like in just a bit. Unless Yuri just wants to keep it on auto cam, which is perfectly fine. But anyway, Willows is starting his lap, as he's got one. The AlphaTauri is about to start a lap as well. But AlphaTauri have completed their lineup now for 2022. They are retaining both Kupok and Gal into next season. And I think it's fair to say that we're both hoping that the AlphaTauri is a better car next season.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think, frankly, it's been a disaster, the car performance. But they're able to score quite a hefty number of points in Monaco, and AlphaTauri, I think they've hit rock bottom. The only way they can go is up, and that's where they'll be hoping they'll go next season.
Yeah, and they'll be hoping to be challenging back in the midfield next season as well, like they did last season. And, of course, Red Bull have now completed their lineup of Evan Byrne and George Roque for next season. Coincidentally, it's the same lineup from the last 4 races of 2006, because, of course, Red Bull was the team that both Evan Byrne and George Roque made their debuts in. But Roque, of course, started at the beginning of the season, whereas Evan Byrne only came in from the Italian Grand Prix onwards. So, obviously, they
Who
do
did he replace?
he replaced David Coulthard, ironically, at a time
when
not all the seats got filled up. So, yeah, he basically went and filled in that role that was left by a real-life F1 driver.
All right, that's fair enough. As Willows is about to finish the first lap of this practice session. Clearly, these cars aren't as aggressive as on track limits as the real-life drivers who have been over the years been getting caught quite a lot with track limit infringements here at Coda. But these guys are keeping it clean, which is nice to see.
Yeah, indeed. I don't think we'll be seeing any track limit issues on Grand Prix 4. We just saw Chatfield make a little bit of an error there as he went into second place. A little bit of a twitch through that final turn as Carr and Kupok have finished the laps, as is Griffiths. Griffiths over 2 seconds off of Joseph Willows as more lap times are starting to come in. Chung goes 4th, Wilson in 5th, and Motrin in 4th position at the moment as well, with Perinen went into 5th, but then his teammate Byrne beat him to the punch. Gallop to 5th, a good start for him in this session in the Alpha Tauri. I wonder if the Renaults may have been holding each other up. Garber now going to the top with a 1 minute 31.330. The championship leader goes top in the moment. De Rosa goes 3rd, so slotting in behind teammate Willows at the moment. Quag goes into 6th. Anderson goes 16th. Those two, of course, now fighting for that remaining Renault seat, as Jesus Perinen was conferred to be remaining at the team for another season. Franco Lopez up into 3rd. Might as well talk about him because, well, the last 6 races, Rob, he has failed to score a point, and at this race, he could mathematically, he's probably more than likely mathematically going to be out of the title fight.
I don't think he was ever in the title fight to begin with, to be frank. Yeah, unfortunately, every era of domination comes to an end, and yeah, Lopez's second title defense is not really going to plan, I'm afraid.
Yep, and it looks like he's probably more likely going to hand the number 1 over to another driver. Now, if it's Garber, then of course the number 1 will not be on the grid in 2022, because of course Garber will be, well, he's obviously leaving the top class at the end of the season with the aim, of course, to go into another series. But if Carr wins the title, then he could get the number 1 off of his own teammate, or he could stick with the number 14. It will be interesting to see. Griffiths improves, but he's 1.9 seconds off, so everybody is now under 2 seconds off of the man who's at the top, Franco Garber, at this stage. Rote currently in 7th
improved
place
as well, but Rana was struggling a little bit in practice. We've seen this before a couple of times as Fraser improves, but remains in 13th fastest. Renault usually sandbagging in practice, and could that be the case once again today?
We will see. Usually they do, and then they usually turn up the wick when it comes to qualifying. Although at times they have shown their qualifying can be a tad bit inconsistent, because at times, not as much as Mercedes, but on rare occasions, one of their drivers can sometimes drop out in Q2. Whether that's Byrne or Perinen, it's usually a bit of a question mark. But anyway, that will be something to keep an eye on throughout this. The 2 Alfa Romeos currently doing a good job in 9th or in 10th, although, to be fair to Alfa Romeo, it was kind of a race to forget at Malaysia.
Yeah, I don't think there's any better way to describe that. They just lacked pace, and yeah, not much they could do back then. I think they moved on from it, and Quag is in the top. Both drivers are in the top 10 at the moment in practice. Sure, it's just practice, but if they can build on that for the rest of the weekend, that would be good. Chatfield, meanwhile, has improved. He's got a cleaner lap this time around. He's 5th fastest.
Yep, and obviously Chatfield getting up into 5th place there. Just thinking, I think I had another topic in my head, but it kind of slipped out, so I'm going to have to rethink what I was going to say there. But obviously, for the championship contenders at Malaysia, it wasn't the best of weekends for them. It was kind of a mid-performance for both Garber and Carr in that race at Malaysia. Although Garber was still able to pull away a little bit in the Drivers' Championship, but not by much. It was not the best of weekends for both of them.
Yeah, Gamba really struggled on that hard tire. He went for one-stop strategy, which should have been expected to work. However, it just seemed to lack the pace and ended up getting beaten by Aston Martin. In the end, though, it was damage limitation, and with such a terrible race that he had, he still ended up increasing his lead over Ka. So I think, despite that terrible finish, he can still be happy with the Malaysia results.
Yeah, indeed, especially given he pulled away a tad bit from Amar Kar in the championship. For anybody wondering, the tyres we're using this week at the United States Grand Prix is the red soft tyres. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the usual joke that it's been for the last few races is that it's always the hard tyre. I think the 4 of the last 5 races we've had the white hard tyre, and only the only other one being the red soft tyre. It's been a while since we've seen the yellow medium tyre, though. I'm trying to remember when the last time we had the medium tyres being used this season. So it is the red soft tyre that's being used for this race, so it'll be interesting to see how strategy plays a part. Now, usually as well, it has been a common trend here with Kota, but usually, no matter the degradation, I don't know if that's going to change for this season, but normally with tyres like this, or the soft tyres, normally the common trend is that whenever somebody switches onto those tyres, they're usually quite quick and makes the overtaking a little bit more easier, especially down the straight, because we've not often seen in previous seasons, especially when people are trying to go for overtakes down the straight, it has been quite hard to overtake, which is a bit of a surprise. But as soon as they put on the fresh set of tyres, they're overtaking like crazy. And I would imagine with these tyres, Rob, we could be looking at a similar thing here.
Yeah, indeed, and I think Kota is notorious for being a high deck track. And with the soft tires, I think lots of tires will burn in the race. Not literally burn, but yeah, loads of people will be struggling with tire wear, which will lead to mistakes and to opportunities to other drivers. And those who can get that balance right and manage the temps and get the attack on fresh tires when they get the opportunity can gain lots of positions with overtakes and can really have a very solid race pace. So we'll have to wait and see.
Indeed so, as Carr making his way around the triple right-hander before he approaches the final two turns on the racetrack. Before he finishes his next lap, as Chris has just informed me that the last time we had medium tyres being used in this season was back at the Hungarian Grand Prix, so it has been a little bit of a while since we've seen those tyres. That was back in round 11, so it's been 6 races that we haven't seen the medium tyres, as Carr wasn't able to improve on that occasion, stayed in P number 8. And, well, we talked about how he didn't have the best of race in Malaysia, as Motrin has a double lockup going into the first corner there. But we talked about how he hasn't had the best of pace in recent races. Well, I think you could say the same. Well, I think it's, Malaysia. Well, I think it's safe to say the last couple of races have not been the best for our car, as he only finished in 7th at the Korean Grand Prix and only picked up a P8 at Malaysia. So, yeah, the last 2 races have not really fared well for Carr.
Yeah, indeed, and I think this has fueled him to try to make up last ground, and well, he needs to get the wake up sooner rather than later, because if he keeps having weekends like these, Franco Gamba will pull away, and before you know it, he'll win the championship with a race or 2 to spare. So Kyle can't afford to let that happen. I think he wants to bring this fight to the end. He knows what it's like to lose a world championship. I think he knows that quite well, and he doesn't want it to happen again. So I think Armar Cup, despite those 2 bad finishes, will be filled with determination, as Gamba has a little bit of an error there.
Yeah, but he's gone a little bit deep coming out of, I think that's turn 6, I think, or turn 7. But yeah, clearly going a bit too fast here.
Looks like he was trying to abuse track limits after all.
Or just trying to find the limits, it seems, and obviously it didn't really pay off for him. And in fact, the fellow Franco Lopez, has just come up behind him. But with Lopez looking more than likely to be out of the title fight by the end of this race, you could say that because, of course, Mercedes have won a championship since 2016, of course. They've had a driver's title for the last 5 seasons. So really, it's up to Carr, really, to try and keep that streak up.
Yeah, I think Merck need to start putting all their eggs in one basket.
Yep, because it's very clear that Carr throughout the season has had a much better year compared to Lopez, but you could have made that argument last season that in 2020, but of course due to a lot of bad luck coming towards Carr's way, it enabled Lopez to become back-to-back world champion. So
nevertheless, Carr did manage to bring the fight to the last race of the season, so we know he's a good driver. He knows he's a good driver. He just needs to have the machinery and the confidence, because that Mercedes is not good in qualifying. That has been a hiccup quite often, but here at Kota, you can overtake, especially if you have a tire advantage. So I think I won't be feeling that worried this weekend. And by this weekend, I mean this week, since we are on a Tuesday.
Well, I keep on saying weekend, so it's a bit understandable. So, yes, as I suppose, yes, yeah, it's a weekend in universe terms. So, anyway, we're running on board with Roland Motrin, and, well, obviously, last time out, he got Driver of the Day for the Malaysian Grand Prix, and I think, fair to say, well-deserved, really, from people voting, because, well, it was a very, very good race for Roland Motrin. P6 in that Aston Martin, and we talked about as well last week, Rock, how much he's under pressure to perform, really, to try and get retained by Aston Martin, and, well, he's definitely making a case to say, I want to get retained after that result.
Well, for him driver of the day. It was a brilliant performance, and yeah, absolutely. He was incredible. He had the third fastest lap in an Aston. How much more do you need to say? That Aston is not exactly a good car, as Chatfield goes to top of the timesheets. But Mochin, there in Malaysia, he was just absolutely incredible. He was able to overtake both championship frontrunners as well, and yeah. What else can I say, really? I think he knows. I said it during the Malaysia race. The events of that day will be decisive, and if he gets that seat, it will be because of Malaysia. If he doesn't, well, he will have given it a very good run nevertheless.
Yes, indeed. Now, we were riding on board with a Haas, but I'm still yet to see this little tweak that this car has. Wilson's on track, but I'm still yet to see what the other team is that's had this tweak, because to their livery for this weekend. So hopefully we get to see that during this practice session, rather than the autocam being the autocam. Anyway, we're looking at Roman Quag, who is currently 9th at the moment, and of course, with the news that Jesus Perinen is being retained by Renault, he and Anderson are basically locking horns for that second seat, and for both of them, really, you could say it's basically all or nothing for them. And I'm just looking at the Haas. I can't quite see from that distance what the side of it looks like. I wish we could have a look forward to see what it looked like. So wish we could the camera would pan towards that Haas, ready to see what this tweak is about. Just trying to see, but I can't quite see what the tweak is. So yeah, as Roman Quag now then coming around the final corner, as he now makes his way onto the pit straight. And so coming down the straight, no improvement for him. But yeah, as I was saying, Quag and Anderson now, it's basically all or nothing for them, because all the other choices are basically not eligible. So it's pretty much Renault or nothing for them, Rob.
I think his chances are. If I was a bookie, I would put my cash on Quag. That's all I'm gonna say. I think he will get the seat over Julius Anderson, but of course, until it ain't over, it ain't over till it's over. So Anderson will be giving it everything. He is the underdog in this fight for the Renault seat, in my opinion. But we will have to see what happens.
Yep, we will definitely have to find out what on earth happens for the remainder of this season, as Patel just comes out of the final turn, as he will be finishing his lap quite soon now. Then across the line he will go, and he does not improve. Roke does, meanwhile, got a healthy bit of slipstream. He goes up into 4th position, so 2 and 4 for the two Red Bull drivers. Quag, speaking, who we were talking about earlier, is now coming back into the pits this lap, as Quag making his way through the section of corners. And so I'm now looking at the current order at the moment. Anderson currently down in last position at the moment, 1.9 seconds off of Chris Chatfield, who of course just a little bit earlier went to the top of the timing sheets, and definitely a man on form this season, as Vaderi just comes out of the final turn. Perinen, meanwhile, goes up into 14th, but still not anywhere where we expect the Renault to be at the moment. As we continue, as we're now looking at Patel, who has got Roke now all over the back. Will Roke get the move done down into the hairpin? He's on the inside. Has he got the move done? And yes, he has. So Roke getting through there quite easily there, as Vaderi is currently up on his personal best in the first sector. And I'm just a bit curious to see what this tweak is for the Haas. I have not seen it yet for some reason, and I couldn't quite tell what the change was. So
yeah, me neither.
Sure. Well, I would have expected Evan to tell us, but he's clearly not here at the moment. So as Vaderi comes around the hairpin, he uses the curb on the outside, as he's actually 78 thousandths up on his personal best in that middle sector. As Vaderi now they're making his way towards left-hander, as whoa, that's a bit of a moment there. And I've seen one of the tweaks. That's the Renault tweak. He's it seems that Evan Byrne has continued this little joke that he's done, because you may remember back on the catch-up episode, I mentioned that he's carrying a Red Bull helmet livery. Well, it seems now he's passed it onto the Renault, and he's also added a bit more onto the Renault as well, as you can see. So there's the first.
That is cheeky. That's very, very cheeky.
It seems like he's continued that trend on the Halo, it seems. So very, very cheeky there from Evan Byrne. I think he's the only Renault to have that. Of course, I don't think Perinen has got it on his car because, of course,
I
he's
wonder
obviously
what the reaction would be if a driver did something like this in real life, as
Indeed.
Federi improves to go away fastest.
As Videri, yeah, he went up into 8th there. So Videri, he has shown some good pace on one lap pace. It's fair to say, Rob, throughout the season. But obviously, he's only scored 1 point this season. Now, whether that's down to him being involved in crashes or stuff through no fault of his own, it's kind of the where he is in the championship. I don't think really reflects how he's been this season.
He's had his fair share of bad luck, but on the other hand, his teammate Roman Quag did have the better measure of him for this season. So Federi, yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate, really. I guess all he can do is do his best in the remaining races and see if that's enough to get him a seat on the grid. Because if I'm not wrong, he is not attempting to get retained by Alfa Romeo. So yeah, I'm not sure if he'll be on the grid next season or not.
He is a contender for Aston Martin, and we do believe that he will be leaving Alfa Romeo at the end of the season because, of course, Alfa Romeo are ahead of Aston Martin in the pick order, and he's put Aston Martin as his number 1 choice. So, yeah, obviously Videri is expected to leave the team at the end of the season. Of course, I say expected to because, of course, there are sometimes situations where we may need to call back on drivers. So that's why I normally say it. I know that some people get a bit confused as to why.
We have Amelia Wilson. Meanwhile, can we see the tweaks on that Haas?
Yes, there it is. I can see it. The American stars, as you can see. They've put the American stars on the little stripe there. So, a bit of a nod, of course, because this is obviously not just Haas's home race, but this is also Amelia Wilson's home race as well. And Wilson hoping to do a good job in front of adoring fans here at the Circuit of the Americas.
Well, it's the first time an American driver has raced with an American team in the US. So I think this will be a special weekend for her because she is expected to leave Haas at the end of the season because of the pick order, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Indeed, and of course, I'll reiterate. Of course, I know about the pick order, and I know that some of you maybe get a bit confused as to why I say expected to rather than saying she will leave. Well, that is because, of course, sometimes we do have to. Sometimes there may be occasions where we have to refer back to people in some situations, but often, well, basically, in all the time that I've been around in the sign-up process, that hasn't happened yet. So, yeah, I do expect Wilson to leave Haas at the end of the season. Same goes for Videri of Alfa Romeo. Same goes for Quag, also at Alfa Romeo. And we're expecting a brand new lineup for Alfa Romeo next season as a result. And, of course, I am also expecting Anderson to leave Aston Martin at the end of the season. And, of course, Bernie's leaving Renault at the end of the season because, of course, he's moving to Red Bull in 2022. So that's obviously already been confirmed there. So it will be interesting to see. But so far, the only apart from Byrne, all the other announcements have been retainees at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see. We're yet to see maybe a rookie or returning driver being confirmed so far in this silly season. But I mean, there has been some speculation that it might actually happen. That there will probably be a couple for next season. Well, obviously, the names that have been popped up in terms of F2, and we were talking about it yesterday. You've got the likes of Aaron Curtis, also Bence Valdinger, and a few others as well in that series who could maybe get promoted for next season. But also there could be some that gets promoted from other series as well, such as Formula E and even World Champ Car. It will be quite interesting to see who will be the first out of those series really to be announced, or whether we'll get some. It will be quite interesting.
Well, the main reason no returnee has been announced yet is because most of the ones who are attempting to return to the top class are battling each other. Of course, we got quite a number of people in the running for the Haas seat, and yeah. As for F2, Curtis and Valdinger do have a chance. I think Valdinger's chance is quite solid, but we'll have to wait and see. Will depend on other drivers as well. As for Curtis, even though he's not exactly having a great season, his title defense is not going that well, but he is the Aston Martin test driver, and that will help him out a little bit. So I think it'll be close for the Aston seat with Curtis and Valdinger. Of course, he's in the running for Alfa Romeo. He's on pole for today's race, so I think it's still a little bit early to say what his chances are like, but I think it'll be entertaining. Of course, we got other names such as Wilson in the running for Alpha, and other people who might go to Alpha if they miss out on their number one choices, including Florian Volker and Robert Ionescu as well.
Indeed so, as Videri just making his way through the S's now and then, as he's currently up behind the Lamborghini, one of the Lamborghinis. That will be Chung, of course, because Patel is currently in the pits. Only 17th and 18th so far for the two Lamborghini drivers. And it's fair to say that Malaysia, we talked about how Alfa Romeo wanted to forget about Malaysia. Well, another team that wants to forget Malaysia as a whole is also Lamborghini. Both of them failing to finish. Laura Chung again having mechanical issues, and Rahul Patel, well, he obviously got took out by Jake Galloway in that race. So, and as a result of that, because of McLaren's brilliant result in Malaysia, it has now meant that McLaren are now just, well, they're still quite a bit behind. Still a bit behind. In fact, no, they're not. In fact, that's the wrong championship table I've got there. But they have now closed up to Lamborghini, so that fight for fifth is now starting to hot up again.
Yeah, indeed. And looking at the table right now, McLaren look quick. I don't think they have any intention of slowing down, as De Rosa makes a move there on the Haas. And could this be the start of some momentum for McLaren as they attempt to catch Lambo? It'll be interesting to see.
Come at a perfect point, really, and obviously it seems that McLaren want to end their relationship with Renault on a high, if they can, in these remaining 5 races. As speaking of McLaren's, De Rosa now just gets by on the Aston Martin there, that being of Julius Anderson, as De Rosa just making his way out of these section of corners before he now comes towards the left-hander and using all the curb on the inside. Just over 15 minutes to go then in this practice session, and this is what the leaderboard currently looks like then. Chatfield at the top with Garber in second, Willows in third, Roke fourth, followed by Lopez in fifth, then De Rosa in sixth, Galloway 7th, Videri in 8th, Carr 9th, Quag in 10th with Sontag 11th, Motrin in 12th, Fraser 13th, Perrin in 14th, Gal 15th, Byrne 16th, Chung 17th, Patel 18th, Griffiths 19th, Wilson 20th, Anderson 21st, and Q-Park in 22nd position. The whole pack currently separated by 1.7 seconds at this stage, as Videri is coming back into the pits this lap, and probably to get a fresh set of boots on, and then maybe going back out a little bit later on, as Chung is currently side by side with Franco Gamba here, who's trying to get past down into the hairpin, although it looks like Chung is not going to allow him through there, so Chung's staying in front, and I think that will definitely compromise Gamba's lap as a result of that. As Videri now then making his way to second the corners. We run on board with Daniel Fraser now then, who gets by on the Aston Martin into the hairpin. It's now his go to get past on Julius Anderson. Fraser now comes down the long straight now then, as he will be soon be preparing, as he will soon be approaching the next hair. Well, it's not really a hairpin, really. I mean, it's profiled like a hairpin, but as you can see on the mini map, it's not really a hairpin at all. Really, it's just over 90 degrees. It's not really a hairpin of such. Gamba did get held up, but I think he's now going to finally get the move on Chung into the first corner, which he does. So he should be able to get a clear run now as a result, although he could come up to the back of that Ferrari if he's not careful. But we will wait and see. So just looking around at the rest of the order, as Gamba, he makes a similar mistake to what we saw him do a little bit earlier. So looks like once again, Rob, he's pushing really hard through that corner.
Trying to find a good balance with the car setup. Yoda is very, very tricky because you need to. There's always fine margins that you have to find that tune at every circuit you go to, no exception. But Gota got this massive, massive long straight, and you got plenty of high-speed corners. You need to find the ideal compromise because you don't want to be slow on the straight and get overtaken by everybody come race day. But you also don't want to bog down in the corners and such.
No, definitely not. And of course,
Gamba definitely pushing very hard. I think he's running a little bit under steery sap at the moment. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Maybe he'll try something different for qualifying.
Maybe, but we will see, as Griffiths looks like he's going to have a lock up into the first corner, and in fact he goes a bit too wide there, so clearly carrying a bit too much speed going into the first corner there is Jamie Griffiths. Another driver who's still yet to be announced for next season, and but he obviously had another good race at Malaysia. Of course, we talked about last week how he seems to like the Malaysian circuit, and again he showed some very good pace, getting 2 championship points for Williams last time out at Malaysia. And, well, obviously he's still yet to be confirmed by Williams, but I think that will definitely help him try and get retained, Rob.
I think he's done an a very solid job. He was splendid back in the Malaysia race, and I think he's the favorite to be retained by Williams. So, yeah, it just depends when they will announce him. I was thinking he might be confirmed today, but I think he might have to wait a little bit. But I don't think he's that worried.
No, but we will see, of course. As obviously we mentioned as well that there were a couple of contenders for Williams. There was, of course, Mohammed Usman Hamid, who obviously lost the DTM title recently to Kai Sneresnia and ended up, I think, finishing fourth in the championship. In fact, he actually dropped back quite a bit in that drive. Or did he finish second, actually? He's either fourth or second. No, it was fourth because Rifki Fakhrizadeh ended up finishing second in that championship. So Hamid dropped to fourth. So you could say maybe he's probably less likely to get the Williams seat now as a result. He probably needed to win the title to have any sort of chance, but that's obviously not the case. Of course, there's Adam Chobot as well, who is obviously the Williams test driver. But, of course, I think he needs to really raise his game. So I think it's safe to say a lot of people believe that Jamie Griffiths will probably more than likely get retained, but we will see, of course. Another man who also had a very good race last time out in Malaysia was, of course, Miklos Gau. He was practically the only one, really, that made the one-stop strategy work to his benefit. And, well, the only time he scored points before that race was, of course, that Monaco Grand Prix where he got that shocking podium. But on this occasion, he finally managed to get a point that wasn't the Monaco Grand Prix and truly deserved 10th place in that race.
Yeah, he did really well, as Wilson has a major lockup. She goes off the track there. But yeah, Gal, he was being overtaken by a lot of people at some stages during that race, but he did the best with the machinery he had, and I think it was a very fine performance from the 2009 champion. We see a replay of that lockup meanwhile, and yeah, just going a little too deep.
Yes, indeed, and just looking at the time, really, I think because of the delays we had to the start of the practice session, we will go into a little bit of overtime before the qualifying session starts. So I just thought I'd mention that, but yeah, big mistake there, and that will not have helped her tires out in any shape or form. As we now run avoid with Patel, who's now up on his personal best in the third sector, and actually 1/10 down on Chatfield in that first sector. So maybe we're starting to see a proper lap here from Rahul Patel. Of course, got retained by Lamborghini last week, and of course Lamborghini retaining their 2021 lineup into 2022, as Patel now making his way down the straight. Of course, he will be moving to the USA in real life, so you could kind of say that pretty soon he will sort of class this as his home race, maybe in the future, a sort of a home race in the future, as he's now 2/10 up on his personal best in the middle sector, but 5/10 down on Chatfield as well. So he'll probably either just get himself into the top 10 with this lap or just outside of the top 10. We'll have to wait and see as he comes around the mirrored version of the infamous Turnator Istanbul, as I like to refer it to. He now makes his way into the final two turns on the racetrack. Now through the final corner he will go, as he'll make his way onto the pit straight. As Galloway now then goes up into third, so 1-3 now for the Ferraris. He's actually the Devil's phone number from Temps, that is, behind Chatfield, as Patel actually got up into 14th place with his lap there. But P7 now for Armar Car, so we're seeing a few more improvements now starting to come in this session, as Patel now makes his way through into the S's, through the left, through the right, then through the left, and then through into the right-hander we go. As he's now still up on his personal best in the first sector, so looking like he's just getting two very quick hot laps out of his system in this Lamborghini at the moment. So probably getting himself psyched up for the qualifying session, Rob.
Yeah, so Lamborghini with Patel aren't appearing to be that quick in practice right now, so maybe they're just trying some different things, but it'll just remain to be seen. And of course, Zhang appears to be struggling at the moment as well. But if you think this means Lamborghini will get eliminated in Q1, it is very, very unlikely. I think Lamborghini are just taking their time. It's practice after all, so why go all out?
Same can be said for both Perrin and Byrne in this session as well. As again,
yeah,
he's still
indeed.
up on his personal best in the middle sector now by 39 thousandths of a second, so finding a tiny bit more time at the moment through these sectors. So let's see if he's going to be able to improve on this occasion, as he now makes his way around the triple right-hander, using all the curve on the outside on that occasion, through into the second to last corner, and now down towards the final corner. Then he will go as he flicks the car in through the final turn onto the pit straight. Let's see if he's able to improve. Patel now then across the line He will go, and he doesn't improve. In fact, he lost time in that last sector by 55 thousandths of a second. So clearly having a very good last sector earlier on, and he's actually coming back into the pits on this occasion, as you can see on the dev panel on the top of your screen there. So Patel through the S's now then will go. And, well, thanks to Williams and AlphaTauri scoring points in the last race, things are definitely looking very close in that fight for 8th position in the constructors between Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, Williams and Haas, all of them within 10 points of each other. So getting very tight, even down at the bottom end, Rob.
Indeed, but to make up that difference, you're going to need to get big points finishes. Getting just 1 or 2 points here and there isn't going to cut it unless you're very consistent. And sure, one of the bad teams can get points once, but what's the likelihood they're going to do it over and over and over? So yeah, it's going to take very big results to try to shake this order up, but it is a close fight, and it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on.
Indeed so, and it'll be interesting to see who ends up going bottom after he ends up going bottom after this. I say 10 points, but I think it's actually... No, I think it is still 10 points. I don't know what I'm talking about. Both Alfa Romeo and Haas didn't score last time out, but Williams and AlphaTauri did. They actually closed up a little bit more to Alfa Romeo as a result, as Patel now then just coming back into the pit lane now then. Will he get one more flying lap in? I'm not so sure, but we will wait to find that out a little bit later on as one of the Ferraris gets wheeled back to the garage, that being Chris Chatfield, because Jake Galloway is still out on the racetrack. And as for Galloway last time out in Malaysia, Rob, well, it was not the race that he was hoping for. Obviously took out Patel at the first corner, which gave him a 10-second time penalty, and well, it was just a race to forget for him, really.
Yeah, he didn't really have the pace. He ended up lapped by his own teammate as well. I think he's moved on from it quite well though, and Ferrari are once again looking quick here, so we'll have to see if he can ride on his teammates' coattails. I don't want to use that term, but if he can carry that if he can use the momentum his team is using. Ferrari have won the last 2 races, of course, so who knows really. I think Galloway is also a one who is fired up after Malaysia, just like Ka. Sure, it might not have been a good weekend, but there's definitely promise for much better.
Indeed so. Of course, Ferrari getting some very good points last time out at Malaysia, but they're still quite a far way back from Renault, and I think they're more than likely going to get 4th in the Constructors' Championship, if I'm being totally honest, but I think, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but I think it's going to be too much of an ask for them to try and break into that top 3 in the Constructors.
It'll be a little tricky, but never say never. As Chung improves to go into 10th fast, the Lamborghini may be starting to take off a little bit of the sandbags.
Indeed, as Chung got herself into the top 10. Patel hasn't, though. He's down into 16th position at the moment, as I think Motrin just had a little bit of a wide moment going through into turn 2, and it seems to have continued going through into these S's. Motrin currently 15th so far in this session, as Motrin making his way up through the hill through the right and left-hander now. Then he will go as he uses a bit of the curb on the outside there, as he now makes his way down towards the hairpin. Griffiths is the only one in the pit lane at the moment, so he's deciding to stay in the garage on this occasion. Whether he'll go back out on track a little bit later on, we'll have to wait and see. Patel has got back out on track though, so still feeling he can try and break his Lamborghini into the top 10. As Motrin now then making his way down towards pin, as he's currently down on his personal best, and still down on his personal best by 6 tenths, and he's actually second down on Chatfield as well. Byrne improves, but only up into 17th position. I wonder if Renault are just going for the full sandbag in this session. I mean, Perinen has got up into 9th place, but not really exactly where you expect the Renault to be.
Maybe they're splitting up their practice programs, with Byrne maybe attempting some long runs and Perinen going for outright quality pace, but who knows really. We've got 3 minutes to go. Motrin is about to finish a lap. Chung has improved but remains in 10th. We have Chris Chatfield, who is making a mistake here, and ooh, that was a big lockup.
Yeah, indeed, a similar error to what we've seen Gamba do on 2 occasions during this session. So now he's starting to even push further through that corner. We've seen quite a lot of mistakes through into there, and could be a bit of an omen to keep an eye on during the qualifying session a little bit later on. But a mistake there for Chatfield. But he is still top at the moment in this session by 45 thousandths of a second ahead of Franco Gamba. The top three separated by 69 thousandths of a second. And I said the Devil's phone number by accident there. I don't know why I said that. 666 is. But anyway, as meanwhile, now it's
joins that top four.
Now it's top four who are separated by that because Roke has got up into third position. So now the top four are distinguished with Ferraris and Red Bulls. Where have we seen that before? I wonder. But
are we looking at Ferrari v Red Bull fight for pole, perhaps? Good McLaren, Renault or Lamborghini in the mix as well. Who knows really? As here we have Wilson, who improves to go up into 19th.
And I think we're now going to ride on board with the remainder of for the drivers for the remainder of this session. As Q-Pop crossed the line, no improvement. Same for Chatfield is actually going to try and overtake him into the first corner. As looking at Laura Chung, who's now down on a personal best, obviously had two very fast laps a little bit earlier on. But now Chung comes across the line and no improvement. She stays in 10th position. Some of these guys are done with for the day, including both the Mercedes drivers. Here's Rahul Patel, who's up on his personal best. Can he get the Lamborghini into the top 10? Let's see. Patel across the line. He will go now then, and not quite up into 11th place. He's just slotted behind his teammate Laura Chung there, as Mikolas Galley's done for the day. He's just come into the pits. Here is Daniel Fraser now then, in the Haas, just coming around the final two turns on the racetrack now then. Through the final turn onto the pit straight now then will come Daniel Fraser in the Haas. As he will now come across the line, and let's see what he can do. And he does not improve, he stays where he is. George Roke, meanwhile, he's on improvement across the line. Can he go to the top? No, he can't. In fact, loses time in the last sector and stays in third position. We ride on board with his future teammate, Evan Byrne, and who has obviously got Red Bull branding on his halo there, as he now comes towards the final corner now then. Making his way
on an improvement.
Let's see what he can do, as he's now going to cross the line now then, and he does not improve. He stays where he is for the time being now then, as he'll have one more flying lap to do. Chatfield looking like he's not on improvement. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Checkered flag is out. That is the end of the session. I think Gamba just made it. He did just make it, so Gamba is the last one to cross the line. Chung doesn't improve. She stays where she is, so she stays in P number 10. And what's everybody else doing behind her? Sontag doesn't improve. Here comes Rahul Patel, who's continuing to go up on his personal best. Can he get into the top 10 this time? No, he can't. Loses time in the last sector and remains in 11th position. Galloway and Griffiths are just getting some mileage runs in, so their times will not matter too much. Same for De Rosa, as Fraser's coming back into the pits. Here is George Roke in the Red Bull, as he now makes his way into the final two turns on the racetrack now then. Coming up towards the final corner will come George Roke in the Red Bull now then, as he makes his way onto the pit straight and across the line now then. He will go. Roke across the line, and he does not improve. He stays where he is. Perrin just getting some mileage in the Renault. Same goes for Julius Anderson in the Aston Martin. Byrne now then just going around the quadruple right-hander, as he will now come around the final two turns on the racetrack. And now then down in 17th position, and I'm expecting him to stay there throughout this session. Evan Byrne down the pit straight and across the line now then. He will go, and no improvement. He stays where he is. Wilson's done for the day. Where is Franco Gamba, I wonder, as Chatfield's coming as his Q-Pot. There is Gamba. He's the last one to, of course, cross the line, as he now makes his way into the final corner, and now onto the pit straight he will go. Gamba across the line now then, and can he improve? And no, he can't. He stays in second, and that is practice done with. So that's the practice session done with Chatfield top, Gamba second, and Roke in third. So what did you make of that session, Rob?
I think it was all right. We've clearly seen Sector 1 is particularly difficult, so we could see some mistakes in qualifying, which I think would be quite something. So I think we're in for a very entertaining session.
Indeed so. Well, we're just going to take a brief pause for the moment, and then we'll come back with a fresh stream in just a bit for qualifying. But in the meantime, I've been JW97, he's been Rob, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session. See you in a bit.